Welcome back for another episode of Sunday SoulDay, fueling your mind, body, and soul with soulful conversations and life-changing insights. What happens when the life you've spent decades building is no longer the life your soul is calling you to live? After 30 years as a producer, agent, and agency owner in the fashion industry, Maia Holmes listened to that inner pull and chose to reinvent her life. Today, she's a transformational healer, intuitive guide, and founder of Soul Spring Healing, helping people release emotional blocks, rewrite limiting beliefs, and reconnect with a deeper sense of purpose. As a Reiki Master, energy healer, and certified Rapid Transformational Practitioner, Maia's work sits at the intersection of healing, intuition, and transformation. Maya is also the co-founder of Travel with Ree, where luxury meets holistic healing. And if that wasn't enough, she's the author of the soulful children's series, The Adventures of Micah and Matilda. Today, we're talking about what it takes to trust the calling for something more, leave behind an identity you spent years building, and have the courage to follow where your soul is leading you. Let's welcome Maya to the show. Welcome to Sunday SoulDay, Maya.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming on. And also, you're in Phoenix.
I am, yes.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm in Chandler, so not too far from you.
Very close. I love it.
Yes. And we are not experiencing as hot of weather as it was last month, so I will take it.
True story. It is a little muggy today, but that's because of the storm last night. So it's fine.
Exactly.
I like the humidity as well. That's okay.
Yeah, I'll take that over 113. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to just share with the audience. So you have such an interesting background, which spans, 30 years at a top fashion agency, and both in LA and Miami. Like, can you take us back to that moment when you realized that something deeper was calling you? Where did you find the courage to even pivot? Because that's such a transition.
It's a very big, they're totally different things. I mean, I haven't been in an agency for 30 years, but I've been in the fashion business industry for 30 years. And that was something I always loved since I was a little girl: fashion, models, photography, styling, all of that stuff. But so it was natural that my career kind of went in that direction. However, alongside of that, there has always been, my entire life, there has been like a niggling of something else, something more. I was always very attracted to like crystals, stores, or esoteric anything. And as a child, I was just magnetic to it. That was magnetic for me, and never knew why. I just thought, oh, whatever, that's interesting. And as I grew older, yes, in college I would do yoga and that kind of thing. But I was more interested in being social and figuring out who I wanted to be. And then when my career took off in my 30s, my late 20s, 30s, I again loved my career, but I always knew there was something else. I just couldn't name it. I didn't know what it was. And then I guess as my career developed in New York, I lived in New York for about 11 years. I remember I started working at an agency there. And I had been a producer for many, many years, which I loved, but things changed. And so I got a job as an agent. And while I was there, I was learning that job, but I also felt a huge sense of emptiness within me. And I couldn't figure out why, because I thought I picked the career of the thing that I loved. So why am I feeling non-fulfilled? I could not figure it out. It took me a couple of years to really kind of sit and examine what it is that's making me so unhappy. I have the career I wanted. I live in the most amazing city in the world. What is the problem, I had to look in. I had to go inside to find that answer. So with the help of many therapists, a lot of inward discovery, that call became louder and louder and louder. So as I got older, the call just got louder and louder, and I didn't really have an option but to listen to it.
Yeah.
So when I was in New York, while I was working at a modeling agency, I also then got involved with Reiki there. and started working in hospitals in New York after my job. So after work, I would go to the hospital and volunteer and treat patients. And I found that I was so uplifted by that work. I glowed every time I left the hospital. People would go, "Oh, are you in love? What's going on?" And I just felt like I'm being used correctly. I'm being correctly. I am in service, and that is what I'm supposed to be here for. So that's kind of how it started for me. And then from that point on, and that was about 2018, it just got bigger and bigger and louder and louder and louder.
No, thank you so much for sharing. And you touched on such a profound point. And I really want to hone in on this a little bit for the audience because there's people right in that same position that you were, where externally the life is amazing. Like everything looks great. You're in an amazing city, you're in the industry that you thought you were supposed to be in, doing the work that you thought you were supposed to do. But then there was still a loss somewhere, like a deeper nudge, something, but you couldn't name it. And I find that so many people are in that same situation. They're working in these incredible jobs. They've climbed these imaginary ladders, I say
Yeah.
imaginary because it's like, at what point do you stop,
Yeah.
So like they're climbing these ladders that just keep going, and they think that they've reached some pinnacle of success, whatever that is, but then they're still not happy. And there's like this pull to do something else, but they have no clue where to start, and so I love that you shared that because for one, lots of people experience that, and then also there's probably people listening right now that are really struggling with that, and so I love that you said you went inward. And so I'm so curious because, to jump from that to Reiki, like, what was that like? I mean, was that just a part of your process of, going through therapy and
Yeah.
learning and trying new things?
It really was. I mean,
Okay.
I am not only someone that likes to heal other people, but I participate too. So I think I'm sure at that point I got a Reiki treatment from someone at some point and thought, well, this was just amazing and felt so good. And if they can do it, well, I can do it. And I kind of have always had that mentality. Well, if they can do it, well, I can too. So if it interests me, I want to learn it. I kind of did it for self-healing reasons, honestly, in the beginning. Um, and yeah, I don't know, it just opened up a whole new world, really. And I think because as a society, we're programmed to be a certain, we're programmed from school. What do you want to do? What are you going to be? So you're already starting to panic at the age of 16. I got to figure it out. No, you don't have
Even
to.
younger. I don't know why we ask that question to kids. I'm
It's,
like, what? I'm like,
I,
they don't even know how to tie their
the
shoes yet.
brain isn't even fully
My
developed.
brain isn't even
Yeah.
developed. Like they haven't even experienced enough in life to know what brings them joy?
I mean, our brains aren't even fully developed till about 30 years old. So why are we even asking the question? Everything before then is we're finding out what we like, who we are, where we want to be, who we want to be with.
Learning through by doing.
Yeah,
And through our
exactly.
experiences. And so I'm curious about that because I want to dig into the inner work that you were doing,
Yes.
and just that search for healing and happiness and joy again, right? And really, I find it's like you were searching for that fire,
Yeah.
like what was that process like? Like when you went to therapy and did all that, like were you trying different things? Like were you joining groups, communities? Like I'm trying to like
100%.
tangibly, express this to people because they're also in the same spot, where they're really struggling and they're like, do I turn to a coach? Do I go to a therapist? But I think
Honestly,
it's like not an or, I think it's an and. You do lots of different
it,
things.
it is. It is. And I have found over the course of my long life at this point that when you do things that you feel, it's something, you feel called to do something. You feel, oh, that looks interesting. Let me try that out. That thing will lead you to another thing, which then leads you to another thing, which then leads you to another thing. So none of those interests are wrong or bad or in any misorder. You can do things in any order you want, and things reveal themselves to you when you're ready to hear it and learn it, right? So one thing does lead to another. I mean, I joined a group In Brooklyn, I remember it was a healing group. I didn't even know anything about it. I'm like, well, what? This looks interesting. Metaphysical healing, something. It was, I can't even remember. It was so long ago. It opened my eyes to speaking to someone's higher self, didn't it? So now all of a sudden I learned I don't have to have an in-person conversation. My higher self can have that conversation, whether that person is dead or alive. Wow, who knew I could do that? And then from there, I wanted to learn more. I joined a Buddhist temple. I wanted to learn more about meditation and what that entails and what is the goal and what are we doing, what the purpose is and that tradition. So I did that. Various meditation centers I would visit for various modalities and reasons. Or if there was a healing, maybe it's cupping, maybe it's massage, maybe it's acupuncture, maybe it's more than those things. I mean, there are so many different healing modalities, and just trying them out one by one, I promise it opens you up to something different.
I love that you mentioned that because I think that's the misconception. It's like there isn't like a one size fits all. And you
No.
really do, because this is new, it's almost like an opportunity to get excited again and almost explored from like this childlike perspective and this childlike joy, where you're learning something completely different that you haven't done before. And so it's scary for some at first because they're like, okay, I've never tried that. I've never gone to Reiki. I've never had Reiki done, like, but that's okay. Like, open yourself up and try it. But I think the most important component that you've touched on is really sitting with yourself and doing that inner work
Yeah.
to learn yourself deeper. I call it the pomegranate method, where you're peeling yourself back to get to the sweet spot of who
A
you are.
100%.
And that's where all the answers live. We are always looking for the external answers, and all those modalities that she shared are so wonderful. They are an add-on to the inner work that you must do. And so
Exactly.
love that. Like, I want to talk about Reiki and energy healing because I'm
Yes.
so fascinated by all of this. And like, I've
I
had
honestly, I
Reiki.
am too. I'm like, wow, this is like amazing how this works.
I know, and you're a
Energy.
Reiki master.
Yeah, yeah, I did. I became a Reiki master several years ago in LA now, once I moved there. But, energy transcends time and space. So I always think about it this way, and I'm sure you have done this. Many people have done this. You can see it on YouTube, on Instagram, little meditation. They'll say, oh, call your power back, call your power back, call your energy back. That is a perfect example of how energy works, transcends time and space. By you speaking out loud, I call my energy back to me. You are directing all of your energy to be pulled back to your body. That's all I'm doing in an energy healing, whether that's remote, in person or remote, because it does not live in a space. I can connect to you or to my client, whoever I'm working with, I'm intuitive also and empathic. So I not only feel your energy, I really can clock into it. So once I can connect to it, then the session can start. And I'm just a conduit. I'm just a channel. That's all I am. I'm just a vessel. It comes through me. I direct it to you, and then your body does its healing the way where it knows where it needs to go. Whether that's a psychological wound, emotional wound, spiritual wound, whatever is you're dealing with, it knows what to do. I promise you. And sometimes I will feel it in my body when I'm doing a remote session. I have had that experience before, which just helps me do my work. But yeah.
And understand deeper. Yeah, it's so interesting because the body, I mean, everything is energy.
Yeah.
Everything. And so like the body has this incredible way to heal itself, and energetically it does even more. Like it's incredible what it does, to heal itself. And it knows, I love that you said it knows exactly where to go, because it does. And I love that you talked about like energy not having a container. Like, and I think a lot of people miss that, like, because it doesn't have a container, like it can jump timelines, it can jump, like there is no container for energy.
No.
So
I
I
think
love
about
that you
before
mentioned
COVID even happened.
that.
And I
Ooh,
remember before COVID took all of us out.
yeah.
Months before, I would say, I had a friend of mine, we were living in LA, and I said, something is not right. Something is wrong. Something doesn't feel correct. And I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't put my name, I couldn't put a name on it, obviously. Why would I be able to know it was COVID coming? But I knew it was something dark and bad was happening. And when it happened, I thought, well, there it is. That's the energy I was feeling rumbling towards us. So when you have an inkling about something or a feeling, that is energy. That is trying to communicate with you. And I think because of the way our society's been, we've been taught to ignore that, use your brain. Well, your brain just does what you tell it to do, doesn't it? So if you're going to be scared, your body is going to be in a fight or flight. You're going to be struggling with things, all of that kind of stuff. So again, it's all connected. How you're thinking, the energy that's coming in, how you're perceiving the energy, and a lot of it is unlearning what we've
Yes.
learned.
Yes.
And it's hard work to unlearn it because
It
we've been
is.
programmed since childhood.
Yeah. Well, that programming, like you said, is so deep rooted, deep seated. And so it is a lot of unlearning, undoing, and
Yeah.
then relearning, but giving yourself the space to do that. And
Yeah.
it's difficult because we have been taught to ignore our intuition, which again,
100%.
you said is just energy, and so like until like my friend used to call it the big red truck moment. It's
Uh-huh.
like a lot of people wait to the big red truck moment where a big red truck is literally standing in front of you. You can't miss it,
Yeah.
and that's when they're like, oh, as opposed to ignoring all the whispers. And then even when the whispers turn to a little bit louder and a little bit louder, they
Yeah.
ignore it. We're just taught
Start
to
to get
ignore.
poked. Well,
Exactly.
and that's the same philosophy that goes like if you don't treat your body correctly, right? Your body is going to stop for you. Your body is going to make you listen whether or not you
Well,
want to do it. So it works. That applies to everything, I think.
gosh.
And it is painful. Healing and rediscovering and unlearning is a very, very painful process. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But the revelations that occur once you get past the blocks that have been laid out for you, once you're able to, it's like, oh my, the flood of information that is then you are able to access is phenomenal. The way that things work in your life will change so significantly. You're going to think, what was I doing before? How was I making connections before? When you can see in this space, in the esoteric space, in the healing space, that everything is actually connected. So money is connected to your spiritual hygiene, is connected to, all of these things. I don't know. I just find it so amazing and that we all have the capability to do this. We
And it's
all do.
interesting for people who don't, maybe believe or maybe are a little bit skeptic. Like, I'm curious, like, have you always been this in tuned? And, like, have you always kind of, even as a kid experiencing? Because for people who maybe have not, they're thinking, oh, well, she's always been this way.
Yeah, but we all have access to it. I have personally, but I was always told, "Oh, you're so sensitive, Maya. Oh, you're exaggerating. Oh, I don't think so, honey." So I suppressed a lot of. I didn't trust myself. I had horrifying self-esteem issues. I mean, terrible. I did not trust my thoughts. I didn't trust my opinion. None of that. I had, so I had to again learn how to have all of that stuff, and that's taken me up to today. I mean, that is a long, long journey to figure out what has been blocking your path this whole time, thinking it was one thing and realizing it was something completely different that you thought maybe you would have handled. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I find that getting to the point of healing and being able to have that space, a lot of times it does take a big red truck moment to get you there,
Yes.
unfortunately, just because of the way I think the way that the world is built now.
Yeah.
But that can be everlasting. Oh, one thing I was going to say also was during the course of this healing journey, when you're having these horrible moments of breakdown, crying, maybe that's for an hour, maybe it's for 2 days, maybe it's for a week or a month. At the end of it, when the fog clears and when the clouds go away, there is a breakthrough moment. I promise it happens every time. Even when you're at your lowest, when you're coming out of it, all of a sudden there is a moment that clicks for you. And maybe that's when you go, you know what, forget it. I'm going to join my yoga. I'm going on this retreat. I'm going to start doing this. I need to start meditating every day. Whatever it is for you, that will change the trajectory of your life for sure.
I love that you touched on those lower moments. And I think that's another misconception. Like when people think of healing, they think of getting better.
Yeah,
And you are getting better, but you are going through the storm in order to get there. And so I'm like, in order to get to the light, you have to sit and walk through the darkness.
and sometimes you have to revisit it over and
Over and
over
over.
and
Yes,
over. I
exactly.
mean, and I have had moments even
Yeah.
recently where I'm like, are we back here again? Well, I thought this is what are we do? Why am I crying over this? But it's like, oh, it has to come out, Maya. Let it go. Let it go. Let the tears fall because that is it leaving your body, that kind
Yeah.
of,
But also giving yourself that grace. And I think that's what I've learned through this
yeah,
process is giving yourself so much grace, to revisit, to, allow yourself to feel those feelings again, because maybe something new came up, or maybe you were
exactly.
triggered. And so now you've learned our triggers are nothing more than signals for us, and they're signaling something to us,
Yeah.
and signals, what are signals? They're messages. So it's a messenger. And so
Through
when,
energy.
yeah, exactly. So that's why I say everything is energy.
Yeah.
So
I do. I mean, walking into a room, some people have this, some people can't. You can
yeah,
walk into a room and go, okay, I know the vibe. I feel what's going on. Some people can't read the room. I mean, that's
yeah,
real. That is a
real.
thing. Uh,
Absolutely.
you
Some
know,
people can't see past themselves.
and
I
that's
mean,
its own conversation, right?
they tend to be more on the narcissistic side, but they can't
Exactly.
see past themselves. Like they can't read the energy of the room because they're so consumed.
Right.
Like I can go in a room and not speak and can feel everything, you know?
Same.
And so, and it's, I like, I can't fully explain it to people. I'm like, it's just, that's how it's been for me, But I think I'm extremely tapped in
Yeah.
energetically.
I
Like I
think you are too.
operate. Yeah. Thank you.
No,
Uh,
but it's true. I mean, talking to someone and, even if that person is smiling and happy, and I've had so
back,
many interactions with people,
back.
especially in my career, where, I'm talking to someone and they're looking gorgeous and beautiful and we're having a conversation, but I'm like inside, I'm like,
It's
this
the
girl is
energy
dying. Yeah.
behind. Yeah.
She's going through something, or he is going
Yes.
through something, or
Yes.
what we're really talking about isn't what we're really talking about. And I
Exactly.
know it. And it's like to be able to bring that out of the other person, or just to even cognitively know that,
Just even cognitively know. And I
yeah,
think
it
that's the
really
thing,
helps.
because sometimes, and I've had this, and I'm curious if this has been your experience. Like I've had people who get very defensive when I see them.
Oh,
And
yes.
they like, and this happens in the workplace, especially. Like I
Yes.
remember there was a girl that I worked with who I saw behind all of her facade. And
Hmm.
I didn't call it out. I didn't even bring it up, but I saw it. I think she felt that I saw it and she couldn't lie to me.
Yeah.
And so there is a truth in that. And so, and I think too, it has a lot to do with our inner mirrors
A
because
hundred
we're
percent.
constantly doing the work. Like we're cleaning those inner mirrors off. And in every relationship, every interaction is a mirror, right? But the problem is not everyone's inner mirror is clean. And so it's this distorted view and reflection that you're getting back. But when you have someone who's constantly doing the work and open and love and light and brings that kind of energy, you see yourself really clear.
Yes.
And it's very uncomfortable for people who aren't ready to fully see themselves, that have believed the lies that they have told over and over and over. And so I've gotten that. So I'm curious if that's been your
A
experience.
100%. I've done a lot of work, with my astrology chart, numerology, all of the human design, all of the wild, amazing, cool things that there are out there to discover oneself. And I realized not only through those things, but just through my inner knowing that, yes, I am a mirror for other people. And
Yeah.
it literally says it in my chart. You are a mirror. So I've always told people, like, if you don't like what you're getting out of here, you need to look in the mirror because I'm just reflecting back to you the energy that I am receiving And even if you're smiling and being kind and nice to my face, but I am feeling something else from you, it's still not going to be pretty. We're probably going to have a problem. And that has been a very painful thing to realize and learn because, sometimes I just want to hang out and get along with people. I'm not here to, I'm like, I don't always want to be the mirror, but it
No,
is what it is. This is my
truly.
role. I get it. And I where now I have to lead by example
Yeah.
as a person in my own self-healing journey and growth. And if you don't like what you're seeing, I'm sorry. You should probably do the work or we probably should not hang out because you're going to keep being shown where you need to heal and grow as a person.
And that's truly what interactions are, And so like I love when I get around people who can reflect accurately back to me,
Yes.
like where I still need work. And I think relationships are great for this. But again, if that person is not doing their work, it's not a clear reflection back. And so it makes it adds additional challenges,
Well, it's
in the
harder.
relationship.
Yeah, it's harder too. Say, for instance, you are on a healing journey, you're doing your work, and you're with a partner who
It's not.
they're either not or they say they are, but they're not doing the work, all of this kind of thing. You're going to end up going this way because you cannot, those two, the light and the dark, they're not going to be able to hold in the same space, right? The frequency, the vibration, there are two different radio channels. You're
Yeah.
not going to hear, they're never going to hear what you're
They'll
saying.
never be able to meet you, and you won't be able to meet
No.
them. It will be a frequency that just doesn't work together. Yeah.
I always say, and I use this in my last relationship I had, which was a toxic one, but it healed me, and I'm able to, be who I am now because of it. But it is like, I see where you are, you're here, and I am here. I can come down and play with you down here, but eventually my natural level is up here. So I'm going to eventually go back up. And I want you to come with me. If you can't do that, then they're going to be problems
Yeah. And,
because
and to be clear,
you're
it's like
never going to understand.
for
Yeah,
anyone who is like not understanding or, finds it, offensive what we're saying, we're not saying that we're above anyone,
no,
but on a frequency level, you operate at a different frequency. So like think of it almost like a computer, operating at different speeds. It's like
exactly.
some computers operate, they heal, they transmute faster, and then others are a little bit slower. So that's like really, I mean, that's the best analogy I can kind of give.
Either that or I say like a radio station. There's all these different
Yeah,
radio stations. I mean, we
exactly.
don't even use the radio anymore pretty much. But there's 95.5, 98.7, 99, 105.7, whatever they are. And that's
Frequency.
all you're doing is tuning into those dials. So if you do this work on yourself, you're going to be turning into a higher frequency more and more and more. So the people that aren't tuned into that as
Mhm.
much as you want, either that's your family, your friends, your children, whoever it is, your
Exactly.
coworkers, as much as you want them to come along, they can't. But that's also a reason why you would find yourself maybe at a job and going, I know I hate this place now all of a sudden. I have to leave. That's because your frequency has your tuning fork is different now. Your frequency has changed. So you're no longer a vibration to whatever that place was. So you have to go to a place where you're actually seen and received.
Yes,
Um,
100%. Oh
Again,
my
back
gosh,
to
so
everything
good.
is energy. But
Yeah, so good. No, but it's I love that you explained it as radio stations. It's almost like one is like AM, the other's
yeah, and
you
it
know,
is
like
nothing bad. There is no bad
no.
or
And there's
good.
no wrong or right,
No,
but it is a difference. And so, and that's where and frequencies clash. If you think of it as like music too, it's like, it doesn't like when you get clashing beats, it doesn't sound good, so
correct.
you want it to flow.
A smooth.
Um, yeah, well, you also combine, somatic healing and energy practice and all sorts of things in your work. I love that you talked about the human design and all these things.
Yeah.
Can you share like how these modalities like, kind of work together as you're helping
Yeah.
clients break through and experience like just
Well, I love the human condition, and I love that everybody has their own journey, right? To bring them to where we are today. Like, well, how did you get here? What brought you here? And usually, when I'm working with someone, there is something that has brought them to me. Whether they have some addiction they want to heal, or a way of thinking, or whatever it is. So there is usually one main reason. Maybe it's procrastination. We're going to be working on that with you. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Well, what happened? So through the course of an RTT session, I would, it'd be revealed. And RTT is through hypnosis. So, we put the patient under hypnosis. And then while they're there, we get to the root of the problem. And then we transmute that problem and really transform it. So when we're done with the session, they have a complete understanding of where that belief came from and now had no longer affects them. Now, through the course of that discovery, sometimes things are revealed. Sometimes it can be very emotional. And so I found that using the other modalities, maybe after a session or even before a session, kind of helps relax a patient. It helps kind of relax. It gets you into a receiving frame of mind. And then also on the back end, it's used a lot for help integrate stuff. A lot of stuff we hold it in our bodies. I know for a fact, growing up in a narcissistic household, I have held on to so much trauma in my body that I am now releasing. And somatic healing is helping so much with that. But also energy, Reiki, I do Reiki in myself. I do it on my clients. I think it just helps to integrate the lesson. It helps to integrate the new way of thinking, the new way that your brain is going to be working now and processing information, and also helping your body to integrate all of the new lessons, and to help transmute all of the trauma that you have endured. Whatever that may be for you.
I love that you touched on the body, and we live so much in our head. And so all of these modalities get you back into your body, so you can remember and not just intellectually remember, which is what we do so well, right? And we can replay the story, we ruminate and all these things, but to feel it energetically, like in our body, like that's where the healing really works. So I had this piece that I wrote about where it's like, get out of your head and into your body, because it's so important to start there. Like, I used to say early on in my coaching, like, oh, everything starts with the mind,
Yes.
but I actually think everything starts in your heart space.
I
And so,
love that you just said that. I was thinking the same thing as you were talking. I'm like, well, the heart actually has more connections than the
yeah,
brain does. So,
yeah,
and we have
no,
been taught to
exactly.
not listen to this.
Exactly.
Which is wild to me.
No, it's mind blowing. I know. Yeah. So I love, love, love that you talked about the body, because I think that's an important takeaway for the audience. It's like you can do, you hear all these mindset coaches, and it doesn't mean they're doing anything wrong. And I think that's very important, but you also want to feel it,
Yeah.
get back to our feelings, like in our body, because that's how you're able to shift that energy and that memory,
Yeah.
So,
Think about it this way. You could be at a store, maybe checking out something, and you hear a noise and you have a reaction. But
100.
that reaction to whatever you heard, that came from maybe hearing doors slam when you were a child. So now your initial reaction is constantly to be, well, that's not your actual operating type. You're not supposed to be responding to things that anxiously, or connecting to people that anxiously, or whatever it is doing. And that, because it lives in your body is remembering something, and it goes right back to it. Learning that has just been so eye-opening.
Well,
Oh,
and like to that beautiful book, The Body Keeps the Score, it's such a beautiful read, and it's so true. Like I think about women, especially, like how we hold trauma in our hips,
oh,
and all over, but really so much down in that, lower region. Um, and a large part is we don't even know it.
don't even know
We
it.
know we're holding it, and we've held it for so long. That's what's so scary, and you learn to live with it.
Well, and we're as women, we don't talk about it. It's just It happened, keep it moving. I mean, there's no real, I don't know, there's not a place for us to go to discuss this, and it hasn't really been allowed, I mean, to be honest, or I guess allowed in a space that we would this be an open, frank conversation in any women's group or in any doctor's office or in anything but regarding women. You know, we don't really have that space.
Well, I
So
think too, even beyond the space is the language.
yeah.
Like we have to even learn the language. Like if we think about the imprints that we've experienced as children, like,
Uh,
you know, we are in a similar generation, like I think you may be a couple years older, but it's like our mothers were, I mean, what we saw with our mothers, our grandmothers, they didn't talk about their traumas. They didn't
oh
talk
my
about,
gosh.
they brush everything under a rug.
Everything.
And that was, and it's not to shame or blame or anything, but that was their survival.
Well, that's the way it was. They were depending
That's
on
the
a
way it
guy.
was.
They were
Yeah.
depending on men.
And also it's like, who was gonna care?
Nobody.
And so like, so you think about that, and we're carrying all of that generational trauma, stress. So it's not just ours. It's all the
No.
generational things.
Ancestor
That's why I say
trauma.
we don't necessarily know, and we also don't even have the language. And so, you know, although social media is a double-edged sword, as many things are, like,
Yes.
I love a lot of the imprints that we are now seeing, and really I would say like since COVID, like even more so. Like there was a lot on, social media here and there, but it's kind of, you had to dig around for it.
Yeah.
Now I think it's like a lot of information's out there. So it is giving people a lot of the language that they were missing. So
Well, and
definitely
I
seeing
think
that
it gives
swing.
them the space to scream, to cry, to let it go, to let it crumble, because you have to let it crumble before you
Yes.
build the new
Woo,
thing.
that's good.
And I don't think we've ever. Sometimes you do feel like you need permission to do it. You know what I mean? When you've been told
Absolutely.
something so much,
Absolutely.
it's like, no, you're allowed. It's
Yeah.
okay. Let it all burn because you're going to build something new now.
Yes.
And you're going to be okay.
Oh my gosh, I love that. Let it crumble. And
Yeah.
that's hard. I mean, think about that. Let's just like sit
Very,
for a second,
very
like with
hard.
the, even if you have like a family, a husband, your children, like to then be like, let it crumble, let that's hard.
I know. Well,
Even
we were taught, right? I mean, especially I think our
hold it
generation.
together.
If you wanted marriage to work, you can't leave. It's hard, hard,
Um,
hard, and it is hard. Yes, relationships are difficult. But now looking back on my own personal history, I'm like, oh my God, the model that I thought was healthy was not healthy. I'm like, Maya, no, that was not the model. You have been operating under a complete false umbrella this whole time, and you get to create what's healthy for you. Like that is the whole point. So, and it's different for everybody. That is not the same thing for
Absolutely.
everyone. And it doesn't look like marriage. It doesn't look like being in a straight relationship or gay. It's all different for every single person. But yeah, when we're trained to be a certain way, yeah,
Yes.
breaking out of that is one of the most painful things you're
It
going to
is.
ever do.
And a lot of people don't. And that's why there's so much tension and resistance and trauma and held stress and all the things that we hold in our body. And then we wonder why we're sick. We wonder
Exactly.
why why we have like high stress and anxiety and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And it's because, one, we're not being true to ourselves. Everything starts with us. So we get to decide, we get to design, going back to we get to design. Your relationship might look completely different than my relationship. That's okay, but doing what works for you. And I think it goes back to the permission. We didn't see it modeled to us. So it wasn't second nature. We had to unlearn and then relearn.
Yes. And that has been for me almost over a 20-year process. I mean, and it's never going to
Um,
end. I mean, this started for me when I was like just turned 30. It was like, what happened? I was sailing along, living my fashion life, and then I'm like, what now this other thing is coming in to disrupt the conversation. Um,
what are
so yeah.
relationships like for you now? Like now that you've been on this journey for some time, working on yourself, like what are your relationships like now?
Um, I have fewer relationships now. I can tell you that. But
Same.
all of the people that are so close to my heart and in my life, I've known them for years and years and years and years and years. I mean, I know that these people are my soul family and my soul group, and I'm less interested in having superficial relationships. I really don't. It doesn't even like register for me, those kinds of connections. Um, I used to be someone of like, oh, quantity over quality. I'm like, oh yeah, all these different groups of people to hang. That's nice. That's lovely. But I am personally more tuned on one-on-one connections with people as opposed to big groups and having to be the life of the party and all of that kind of stuff. But I think it's made my relationships a lot more um, purposeful.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
purposeful. And I
Yeah.
have found that the people that have stayed in my life, because as we know, people come and go from everyone's life, the people that have stuck around and stayed, they are also have it has come to my attention over years. I'm like, oh, well, I see you're on a healing journey too. I will usually stay connected to people if they are also on a healing journey. If they are not, and if they say they are but they're not or whatever, we will by nature we will just we
Yeah.
will
Yeah,
break
they'll
apart.
just vibrate out. Like I
Yeah,
put up a quote about this, like they will just naturally vibrate out,
yeah.
and I think it's because you're on completely different frequencies, different priorities,
Well, and
different
you
sets.
probably learned the lessons from that
Oh
relationship.
yeah.
I look
No,
back at
I
my
don't think
time.
any relationship is not, without great lesson. And I think they're all purposeful, and they
100%.
serve different purposes at different points in our lives. However, when you are past those lessons and you're now applying the learnings of those lessons, like you now are vibrating completely different.
Totally different. And
Yeah.
I actually don't, it's not like I'm lonely. I wouldn't say that I'm a
Oh,
lonely person. My relationships have a lot more significance. They're a lot deeper and more weighted. And they're so enriching. So I find my alone time extremely enriching, but I also find time when I'm with other people. So it's fun, it's great. I get to play with their energy and we get to hang out and have a good time. I get to get inspired by you, that kind of stuff.
It's all so beautiful, the evolution of our journeys. You mentioned earlier on, probably working in the fashion industry, it was like quantity, you're hanging with all different types of people. And then as you get older too, I think, age plays a role in some cases, but also too, like your relationship with yourself. I think
100%.
when you change your relationship with yourself, I know that was the case for me. My relationships changed when I changed the relationship with myself.
100%.
I did something where I release people with love, where I'm like, instead of like, oh, I'm cutting them off in anger, or oh, they're not, it's nothing like that. I wish everyone the best, and I'm like, who knows? Like our paths may cross again down the road, but for now, like I'm called to do something completely different, And so I've been very privileged to do this work because I have met just incredible people and a lot of destiny helpers, but also just really good friends too. And I have long relationships as well, friends that I've been friends with since I was a kid, like, and those are still intact, but then there was some that I'd been friends with for 20 years that I had to release,
Well,
and that was okay too.
Well, and like you said, everyone comes with a lesson, whether that's a good or bad, whatever. It's all a learning curve. But you will find, and back to astrology, there are points in everybody's life, and it'll be on your astrology chart where there's a season of learning, right? It's Saturn return, or it's if you're living in a certain place, if you even go as far as astrocartography, if you're in that certain location and you happen to have that line going through that city or that place, maybe that's again a Saturn line, a line of learning, or a Pluto, the line of death and rebirth. You are going to find in those areas that is the central theme. So maybe it's like, oh my God, I'm always learning a lesson. What's going on? Maybe you should move. Maybe you should move. But no, and I really legitimately mean that. When I was in Los Angeles, I went with all of the hope and joy and excitement in the world. And well, I did have amazingly fun times there, and I had made great friends. And but I started a business. It was took a lot out of me. I learned more lessons in my time in LA than I have anywhere else. And I've lived a lot of places. And I learned it, and it was all of myself. It was things that I thought I had a well handle on, and that was my own self-love. That was my own boundaries. I guess I did not have any. I would cross my own. I would allow others freely to cross. And I see now the way that things have worked out in my life. I'm like, well, that is what happens. That is what happens when you go against yourself. That is what happens when you fall back on your word. That is what happens when you allow anybody in and you don't have any kind of discernment or any kind, you're just looking at the what could be. No. So it was a very painful lesson in sticking to my intuition about people, sticking to my guns when I say I'm going to do something, that's the way it's going to be, not to go back on my word or not to allow things or people. Maybe I have been, somebody will refer, oh, Maya, you should try it. You should hire so and so. You should work with such and such. You should meet so and so. But if I have a bad recommendation about that person, in my former self, I would say, well, everybody has everybody has issues. It's okay. I'll give them a chance anyway, without looking at all of the red flags, thinking, well, that was their experience. It won't be mine. These kinds of things, that is all firmly in the past now. But it takes a long time, and it was the same lesson in very different forms. I found it in my work. I found it in my personal relationships. I found it in my friendships. I was like, wow. So I realized so many things about myself under all that pressure and pain. But I had to leave it. I had to leave that area to be able to see all of that. You have to have perspective.
Oh yeah.
But
I
that
love that you use
really,
that word perspective though, because I think like a lot of times people think, oh, well, you're just going to carry that same energy into a new city. And it's like, yeah, but
no.
sometimes, well, some people do, right?
Yeah,
But like,
true.
but I also think it gives you a completely different perspective because it's almost like a pool. It's like when you're in that pool of pain and,
Yes.
boundaries, like, all this stuff, like where you're trying to relearn your self-love, like it is so difficult to see. But then when you move and you step away, you can look back, and you have a completely different point of view. It's like standing outside of the pool.
Yeah.
The
It's also
viewpoint outside the
confusing.
pool. It is.
It's confusing when you're working through like four different things. Maybe it's all the same, but it's all the same issue, but you don't realize what it is. It's like, well, what's going on here? It takes space and time. Like I always say, I feel very lucky and that I'm able to kind of pull myself up and have a bird's eye view of a lot of circumstances. It's taken a lot of practice to be able to do that, but I am in that space now, and that is what has allowed me to go, wow, 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 look at that. Lesson one, two, three, and four were all the same. They were just coming in different skin. And now
Yes.
I've
And
mastered
they're
it.
all many betrayals of yourself. And that's when you were listing all those things, I'm like, those were betrayals of
Yeah.
yourself, and it's hard to realize that.
Yeah.
you
Well,
know
true.
and it's hard, but that's what they are. Like when we think about our self-worth, our self-love, and our boundary, holding our
Yeah.
boundaries, like anytime we go against any of those things, it's a betrayal of ourselves.
And
So
as a result of having a betrayal to yourself, you will now encounter a betrayal. Somebody else will now betray you because you betrayed yourself.
exactly.
And then now you get focused on that pain. Oh, I can't believe they
Because
stabbed me in the back.
energetically, that's what you're calling in.
Yeah. And you're like, no, you did it to yourself. You stayed when you shouldn't have stayed. You did the thing you shouldn't have done and you knew it, but you did it anyway. And now here, this comes.
Love
So
it.
yeah, painful lessons, yes, but that's how we learn, unfortunately, in
Yes.
our school. So here we are.
Well, my gosh, you've reinvented yourself so many times, and I'm like, I love that you talk about that, just in your journey. And you've also like co-created or co-founded, excuse me, Travel by RE.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that. It's like a luxury retreat. Like,
Yeah, so Travel by Re is my business partner Terry and I.
okay.
We put this together. It's basically it came about, I was a producer. I used to produce photo shoots and, videos and that kind of thing in my former life. So, and I loved that aspect of things. I'm a multitasker. I love creating experiences for people. And I just thought, you know what? We both love wellness. We love bettering ourselves and other people. But I also love production. Wait a minute, let's combine all of this. We can combine and make, instead of it's a photo shoot, it's an experience. It both come from a fashion background. We're very well versed on, the presentation of things and what real fine touches people love and like love to experience because we have, firsthand access and knowledge to that kind of information. So just to combine those two and create a beautiful experience, whether that's bespoke. I mean, you and like 10 girlfriends could say, hey, we need a healing retreat, a woman's centered. We want to do these kinds of things. You could come to us and we would build it for you, specific, as well as coming up with our own, retreats worldwide. It just depends. But yeah, we work in both ways. And the whole aim is to bring people back to themselves, connectivity, whether it is to you, to another person. I'm a firm believer AI is coming. It is here. We are all using it, and it is just going to increase and take over more. So I feel like even more so than ever, it is now a time to get back to your humanity.
Yeah.
I think we can see that humanity has kind of left the building a little bit in,
Yep.
in our society, in the world as of late. And I think this is a beautiful way to reconnect with yourself,
Mhm.
to find your purpose, find your answers, to stop that conversation. And well, I've been working at this job for 15 years and I'm making all this money and I live in this beautiful house. I don't understand what's going on. Well, here, you can now figure out what that hole is and what you need to do to fill it, you know?
Yeah, it's that God gaping hole, and I'm like, it's so interesting. Like, this is a large part of why I created the Leadership Garden,
Uh-huh.
and it's to get people back in touch with themselves, but also like standing more in their light of whoever they are, however they want to show up, whether they're a stay-at-home mom, whether they're an entrepreneur, whether they're working, like you said, 15 years in a job and they really want to step more into their purpose, but they feel like they haven't been living in alignment.
Right.
So I'm like creating really a whole platform, with all different sorts of things, courses. There will be at some point retreats, down the road. I'll probably be calling you to
We'll
tell
do the retreat.
me.
Yes.
So I love that. It's so good. Like in addition to, all of that you're doing, you also are an author,
I did. Yes.
which is amazing. Tell us a little bit about your children's book series.
Well, I created this little book series, The Adventures of Micah and Matilda. I started writing them about 10 years ago.
Oh,
And I just moved to California and it might be 11 years ago now. And I had been going through some things. My father was really sick and dying, and my cat was also really sick and kind of on dying as well. And I just started thinking, God, there's got to be a way. Honestly, it just flowed out of me naturally. This is how it started. And as I started writing the books, I thought this is a beautiful way to share universal tenets to small children, to start a conversation, to get their mind working in a beautiful way before it gets imprinted, before we start stamping it with all of the things that are not correct.
yeah.
Hey, you get to know that you actually have all of this power. You get to know that you can manifest. You get to know that, if sad things happen, you're still going to be okay, but really to help a parent or a caregiver have a gentle conversation with a child about universal truths, really, and kind of weaving it in a very soft, gentle way. It's nothing's really in your face, but in the little adventure series for children to follow.
So good. But I love that you channeled a lot of that creativity in different ways, like from the sacred retreats to being an author. Like, I think it's really important when you're naturally a creative person to find like outlets, when you
100%.
stepped away, because the fashion industry, wherever part of it that you play in the entire industry, it's so creative.
It's
I
so
mean,
great. And that's one of the reasons why I
you're
was
literally
attracted.
creating something from nothing.
Exactly.
Whether it's like a photo or an art, clothes that people wear, like
Exactly.
it's amazing to me. Or you're a model, like taking photos. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, there's nothing, and then you give it life, So I love that you channeled that.
Yeah. So it's a little bit, and the way you just said that, it was exactly how I would describe that to somebody else. I'm like, I love my job. We're creating something from nothing,
Yeah.
all this stuff. And I wouldn't use the same language in the healing space because I feel like we are creating something from something at this point. A person isn't nothing, but we're
Oh,
just
we're
kind of, we're
whole.
like, it's like, well, let's just shake that up a little bit. Let's Yahtzee it up and see what else we got going on in there.
Absolutely. Well, what's one piece of advice that I would say that you've used on your journey that has helped you tremendously that you want to impart in our audience?
Keep going. Keep going. Um, Anybody at any time can make a choice to up level themselves, to shift, to heal. It can happen any second of any day. And you're never too late. There's never like, oh, I'm too late to start this journey. You're not too late. There is always amazing things to discover and uncover about yourself and about other people. And I would say keep going. If you feel some kind of ache inside of you, if you feel like there is got to be something more than the thing that you're doing and the way you're living, it's because there is. And because you would not have that feeling if there was not something else more for you out there. And it is waiting for you, but you have to go inside to find it, not outside.
It reminds me, you talk about choices, and how we get to choose. Reminds me of a quote I shared many years ago, and I wrote it in my journal. I can't remember how long ago, but I said life is a BCD. We're all born, we're all
Uh,
going to die, and everything in between is our choice.
there you go.
And that's the
100%.
whole truth. We hold the power to make
Yeah.
a change and shift at any given moment. And so I love that you imparted that wisdom in our audience. And I just want to thank you for coming on Sunday Soul Day, blessing the show, blessing me. Love this conversation.
I did too. Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful.
Yes, absolutely. And everyone, as always, have an amazing Sunday. Do us a favor, leave us your favorite part about this conversation with Maia in the comments below, or maybe something new that you learned.